Our next session in AI is really looking at bridging the gap between technology and business, and essentially asking a question of how to integrate your AI solutions with infrastructure and data strategy. And I think that's really key given the amount of information that we've been speaking about in terms of implementing a lot of that knowledge into real-world case studies as well. And in order for us to have this conversation, well, there you go, you can see their lovely faces. I'm really pleased to say we have Bart, who's the Director of Analytics and AI at BNP Paribas Fortis, and Patrice, Latinne, who is the Head of Data and AI at Ernst & Young from Belgium. And also joining the team is Patrice, Sanz, Saiz, who's the Partner and Global Data Analytics Consulting Leader at Ernst & Young as well. Please join me in giving them a very warm welcome to the stage.
Hello.
Great. It's great to be here. I'm delighted. Well, this session is aimed at, as you heard, show a real example of how to close the gap between business and technology. And to do that, we will bring to life a real story of transformation story that started 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, in an effort of BNP Paribas Fortis to transform each and every corporate function of the bank by empowering those through AI. Again, 3 years ago, that was quite ahead of, a trend that is now consolidating in the market, AI at scale, enterprise-ready AI. And probably with financial services, the public sector, retail and health leading the way. But I'm so delighted to be here today with Bart and Patrice. They know the story by heart because this is somehow their baby. They have been at the forefront. They've been the brain behind all these efforts. So let's get started with the conversation. Patrice, let us know more. I know there are plenty of lessons learned. So let us know about the journey.
Yes, as you said, thank you, Beatriz. So as you said, it was a long journey, and we'll be keen this afternoon to explain that journey, all the steps, all the opportunities that working together with Bart for the last 3 years at least, we came through, but also the challenges and how this was actually a nice story. So maybe we can start with the first question, Bart. How that story has actually started.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Patrice, for having me here. Yeah, in fact, the story started earlier than I arrived. The story started, in fact, 5 years ago when we created within the bank, BNP Paribas Fortis, the biggest bank in Belgium, we created the data department. And already then, the role of the CDO, of the data department, was not only to prepare for regulation, GDPR and other banking regulation, but it was also to put a focus on AI. We already considered then that AI would become very important for the bank, and we have to put a focus on that. And so that's how, in fact, it all started with the necessary ExCo involvement.
Yeah. So once the ExCo involvement was clear for you as an AI leader, then I suppose that because you are the first bank in Belgium, so that's quite a large bank with a lot of collaborators, but already a lot of people doing analytics, doing maybe AI already. So it was trying to bring these people. How the organization of AI was, could bring really the team together and make a first organization once you have that mandate for the executive committee to start with AI.
Yeah. Yes, indeed, AI was not new for us. We have 3 million clients, so obviously we were already doing a lot of AI and marketing and risk and all different segments of the bank. But we also had to realize, and we also did an assessment, where are we now? Not only focusing on which kind of analytics topics are we handling, but also how are we organized, what we do in terms of regulation, what do we have in terms of infrastructure. So we did a full assessment of all of that. And we learned that we had weaknesses. We were not ready to scale up. We were not ready at that moment. I compare it a little bit to the picture that you see here behind us. We were like enthusiastic kids playing football, all running after the ball, but almost never scoring. So there were clearly some weaknesses. There were weaknesses on infra, there were weaknesses on processes, and we had to handle that. So that was the first goal that we set ourselves. Let's work on this.
Okay, so you have that good evaluation about the maturity. So you know about the people, what they are capable of. So I suppose that then what comes next, it's about how you start doing AI. Yeah. So you need data, you need technology. So how you could actually start building AI in the organization for the different businesses.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we realized at that moment that, in fact, our infrastructure was our weakness. We had many different infrastructures. All the teams had bought their own tools, their own infrastructure, and that was not efficient. So we had to focus on that. And already at that moment, so many years ago, we were using the terminology MLOps. So we are not by that name, but the focus was really, if you want to leave this era of continuously doing POCs, proof of concepts, we need to be sure that we can also industrialize those models. So let us focus on that, not so much on big computational power or whatever, cloud. That was not the focus. The focus was, let's make sure that we have an infrastructure where we really can industrialize models on, because that will make sure that we really leave this eternal POC era, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that was certainly the first thing that we did. And that takes time. That's something that you need to learn. That's also something that you can't do on your own. You need to have the involvement of IT. You need to have the involvement of the security experts, the privacy experts. Really, all of them need to help you to realize that.
Yeah. Beatriz, I see you acknowledging what Bart says. From your global role at EY as a data analytics leader, do you observe also this kind of acceleration in industrialization of artificial intelligence? What Bart was referring ML ops and doing more than just the POC, but really having the end in mind in putting things in place in the business applications?
Absolutely, and COVID has only accelerated that path. We see a trend which is about embedding AI in the critical pathways of an organization. I think AI is reshaping significant components of the value chain. I think that's happening all across industries. Talent is, and AI doesn't cope well with silos. That's a bit of what we are observing in some organizations. It's less about the technology itself. It's more about the organization not being set up for kind of that collaboration and the talent, which is, it's an issue.
Yeah. So indeed, that's the silos, that's about the organization. We see about the data and the technology, but you are a bank, Bart. You represent the bank, so it needs to be regulated. You don't want to derail the bank. I remember a discussion we have with your boss and the chief data officer at Fortis, where they say, okay, now we have the people, we have data technology, but guys, don't derail the bank. So how can you put the processes in place and make sure that you don't derail the bank?
Yes, indeed. And I think we all heard a lot of topics today about ethics, about regulation. AI has a lot of capabilities, and you need to well govern them. So you need to really set up the necessary processes, the necessary risk mitigation actions to make sure that what you're doing is not derailing the bank. You're not hurting your clients, you're not hurting your internal stakeholders. People should not be afraid of what you're doing. Let us be honest, AI for a lot of people in a bank, it's still hocus pocus. It's mathematical hocus pocus. They don't understand it very well. So you need to convince them about what you're doing is not something scary. Fear should not be the driver or should not prevent you from doing it. But to do that, you need to act as a good manager. You need to put the necessary measures into place, risk measures, processes, governance models. All of that needs to support the whole AI movement that you're implementing.
Yeah. So looking at the journey, so we are already 2 years later to start with the data department. So it was actually last year. You have the people in place. You have, or at least you know the maturity, the data, the technology. Now the governance, as you say, also risk management part of it. So it's time to recreate the excellence and the professionalism of the football team. So at that moment in time, what have you done?
So the bank went through a whole reorganization, and we implemented Agile at scale. And within that new organizational model, also a specific place was given for AI. So AI was not anymore an R&D thing that we were doing at the side. It was really a separate entity within the bank, a centralized entity. So we brought a lot of teams together, and yeah, we gave them a name and an identity. They were there to facilitate a lot of AI ambitions. They were there to bring AI products and services. And for me, in fact, Agile is a very good operating model for analytics, because analytics is iterative. You need to try, fail, sometimes fail fast. And with Agile, you really can achieve that. But even more, I think also Agile gives you a focus on you need to bring products in the end. You need to bring products and services. And that's for me a second big advantage of the Agile implementation that we have.
Yes, as the bank was transforming itself already last year and the year before with what you say, the Agile at scale, indeed you need to follow along that transformation.
Yeah.
Huh? But for that you need use cases. You need ideas from the business. So you need to create your portfolio of use cases. So that was the moment last year that you say, okay, now we need to talk to the business, right?
Yes, yes indeed. So I think a big task for an analytics team is to, first of all, continuously inspire the people in the bank. A lot of the senior managers don't know what the capabilities are, and so you need to continuously invest in that, explain them what can be done. Also, the field of AI is continuously evolving, so you need to teach them what can we really do with AI within a bank. And then in the end, you need to make a nice backlog, a nice list of examples where you need to work on. And there also we chose that we need to select there. We need to carefully select what we will do and also what we will not do. And we use a very simple matrix structure. So we look at the value that it brings, every use case, what's the value that it brings, but also how easy is it? Because not everything that we are doing
the feasibility,
is feasibility in the end. Not everything that we do is easy to implement. And you need to then select what you will be doing. You will focus first on the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones that bring a lot of value, but not only that. You also need to look forward, and you need to do also some bets on future projects that will take some more time, with higher risks, but hopefully also with higher returns. And so you need to make this mix in your portfolio of use cases and go then through them one by one and continuously evaluate what will we do next.
Yeah, I remember that when we started this ideation exercise, it was, okay, we have business ideas, when we talk to the different business department, different teams, even IT actually, say, okay, how AI can help in this, and then we were talking more as technologists like OCR, information retrieval, trying to computer vision and all the algorithms part of it, so more a top-down, more a technology-driven approach. But then we had to rewire the fact that people were talking the business, and we were talking more how the algorithms that we have been developing the last 2-3 years could help in that. So do you what was the resistance of some teams? Were they all aligned with this, or with the ideas? For instance, from retail department, they were already very good in automating the documents, etc., and emails, while we were talking to another department. Were there different levels of maturity themselves?
Yes, I think awareness is still an issue. So not everybody is equally aware of what it can bring. You have the front runners, the people that are already doing analytics for a long time. Marketing, risk are the typical departments where a lot of analytics is happening. But you also have now the new departments. You have the departments, as you mentioned, like IT, and especially at our bank, we are doing a lot of analytics in the back offices and the operations offices, where with OCR, with NLP, we are really achieving very nice results in making our bank more efficient.
Yeah. So you have this backlog of use cases. But you need the direction. At that moment in time, you have a professional team, you have the technology, you have a portfolio of use cases. So do you need to have your own AI strategy in the bank?
In fact, we decided not to do so. We are still a bank, and we remain to be a bank, so we are not an AI company. Mm-hmm. However, I think AI should support everything that we are doing as a bank. And that's also how we give it a place within the bank. We really said, okay, let's see, for all the different business objectives that we have set ourselves as an organization, where can AI play its role? And that's in fact how we got a lot of involvement from the senior management. They started realizing that AI is not something that you do at the side as an R&D thing, but it's really a new capability that we have as an organization, and that can help in all different levels of the organization, as I already said. So that was really a very important moment, and that also made sure that we could scale up. Yeah. I think that's also how we grew over time, and today, in fact, the ambitions are really high for the bank on that level, because we have this link with the business strategy of the bank.
Yeah. Okay, I see. So indeed, when you had, with the portfolio of use cases, you had to really make the bridge with the business strategies. That was very clear at that moment in time. So we are now at that level of professionalism with AI in your organization. What's next?
Well, what's next is we continuously need to evolve. We continuously need to evaluate where we are. This is a domain which is moving very, very fast. So at every moment, we need to see what are the weaknesses that we have now in our organization. Is it infra? Is it organization? Is it the strategy? What is it? And then you need to work on that. I think AI is there to stay. AI is there to stay in many organizations, but it still needs to mature. It still needs to evolve, and it needs to adapt to the situation in which you are, the needs that are at that moment in the organization.
Yeah, I remember recently what you had to do is also big bets. I remember that expression, Beatriz, that when you created the data analytics team 6 or 7 years ago, you said we need to make big bets. And that's exactly also what you had to do this year. Yeah. Because it's now AI, it's next, the next things we need to evolve with the business strategy, but what is beyond? What are the big bets? Beatriz, is it also what you see in Asia, in America, that
Absolutely.
you need really to think, what, 3 years ahead, 5 years, 20 years, like Kefuli said this morning?
Absolutely. Well, what I think the journey that I hear from BNP Paribas, which is similar to us, is a story of infusion in one side, infusion of AI and all the emerging technologies in all the core functions and all the transformative solutions to bridge the gap with those companies that have a digital core. Learn by the second, learn with every transaction, learn with every customer interaction. That's the way to win in the future. Infusion one side, but the other side, in parallel, innovation, constant efforts of innovation. That's the bet that we made years ago. That duality, infusion, and innovation, which sounds quite similar to your story.
Indeed.